setup needed to enable subcontracting process with EWM, wherein we will be sending the product to vendor to carry out certain activities on the product, and maybe the same or a finished product is sent back. So most of the part of the setup for subcontracting process is carried out in S4 side. So I've listed out these steps over here. So first we are going to take a look at the end user part, and then we will jump over to the configuration part. So the important part over here is that either you can create a bill of material, or while creating the purchase order, you can directly enter the uh, components in the purchase order. So I'm creating a subcontracting PO. The important part is that the in side the item category is mentioned as L, which denotes that this is the subcontracting process. And now if you go to the component, the crucial part over here to ensure that the queues are not getting stuck, the batch has to be mentioned over here. If you have a batch managed product, you have to provide the batch. Otherwise, when you are doing the processing for receiving the final finished product against your inbound delivery, then the queue can get stuck, or you will get the error at the GR, because system will fail to identify the batch which needs to be consumed. Even though you might have provided, you would have provided this particular batch, but unless it is mentioned over here, system will not consume the inventory and there will be errors. So to avoid this situation, there is a SAP note already over this, uh, you know, which talks about this, but this is the important part. Now, once we create the purchase order, so once the purchase order is created, the next step would be to issue the material to subcontractor. Now, the component can be same as your final product, or it could be a different one, as it is in my case. If it is the same product which you're supplying to the vendor, then this is going to be a recursive bomb. Now, once the purchase order is created, the transaction code which we need to use over here is ADSUBCON. Earlier, it was ME2O, which is still there in the SAP. It is still not obsolete. It is still available. Now, in our case, we will use the ADSUBCON transaction code. In the selection screen, the final product or the finished product should be mentioned, or if you want to restrict the search, provide the supplier, so that you get to see the purchase order which are specific to that particular supplier in the output of the report, and then you can select the line item and post the create the delivery. Now these are the purchase orders. Now for this one, there is already a delivery which is created. Now we are processing this one, so we will select it and click on delivery for PO. Now at this point of time, system will validate if the supplier is mapped to the customer number, because even though it is a scenario which is dealing with the purchasing process, but since we have to supply the component to the vendor, we will end up creating a outbound delivery, because to in the warehouse we have to pick the product. So be it returns, be it subcontracting process, whenever we want to send the product outside of the warehouse, then we have to create a outbound delivery, and for that we require a customer master. So the BP which is created for this particular supplier or mapped to this supplier is also created with the role for customer, and both the value gets linked. So which I will show in a while. Now, the important part over here is that you will not be getting this button unless system is able to determine the shipping point and the customer number based on the supplier. Now, based on your customer number, the information, the shipping condition, system will determine the shipping point. Now, there are two options for subcontracting process to determine the shipping point, either at the plant level or at the storage location level. There is a specific node given to determine the shipping point for subcontracting process based on the storage location. So in my case, I've used at the plant level. which is used in your regular outbound delivery process. Now, another thing is that there is a specific node wherein you have to maintain the details against your plant, the shipping data for plant. So uh, it's important that that information is also updated to avoid any error or issues at the time of creating the delivery. So we can see that the quantity and the batch is system is repopulating the details from the purchase order. Now we will create the delivery. So if the setup is correct, we will get the delivery document number once the delivery is created. Now before we process it in EWM, we are going to take a look at the details. So if you notice that the delivery document over here is different from what we generally see in the regular outbound process for a standalone delivery or against the sales order. So the delivery document type is LB, and if we take a look at the item type, it is item category, it is LBN. So which means that these two piece of information should be mapped in EWM. Now there is a specific node wherein we have to do the setup to enable determination of specific document type in S4 side. Now if I open this particular delivery document in EWM, and the transaction code is SCWM PRDO. So we can see that the delivery document type is the regular one, which is OUTB, but the item type is uh, mapped to the LBN item type of S4. The item type in EWM is ODTS. So as you can see that this is the item type. Now to get this item type, we have to implement a BC node, BC set. So we will go through the steps which is needed and what is the specific BC set which is needed. So the document type over here is OUTB. Now once we have the delivery, we will if you have the wave assignment activated, there is a wave template which is determined, then you can release the wave in warehouse monitor, and then, or if it is the wave release is set as automatic, then system will release the wave automatically or immediate. Now in this particular example, we are going to create the warehouse task or the warehouse order manually. Based on your stock removal strategy, system will determine the storage type or the picking bin. Now depending upon your setup, so in real time, the operator is going to process this warehouse order on handle device. So I'm assigning a queue. In real time, you won't be assigning the queue. It will be determined automatically based on your resource management setup. So this is a demo system wherein it's a fresh demo system, so I've not yet done that setup. Now there is another video which I've posted about the resource management. You can take a look at it to understand the details. Now when we go to the RFUI, so we can work based on the queue or we can directly process the warehouse order. Since the Pikachu or the cartonation setup is also not yet done, I'm manually creating the handling unit. Based on your verification profile, some of the field may or may not be applicable for scanning. Now all the fields are scannable or verification is required. So I'm entering the details. Once the warehouse order is processed, we will post the goods issue. So there is no POSC involved here or LOSC setup. So as you can see that the picking is completed, we will post the goods issue. Which means that since we are picking the product, which means that we should already have the inventory for your component, which you are supplying to the vendor. So in the demo system, you can using the sync GR, you can add the inventory. Now once the inventory, once the goods movement, we will check that the goods movement is updated or not for the on S4 side for this particular delivery. And take a look at the document flow as well. So this is the material document which is generated as a result of the goods issue. Now, so the movement type here is 541. Once the product is sent over to vendor, the vendor will carry out the processing on that product, and vendor will supply the final product to the customer. Now, if you have the carried out the TU integration, you can populate these field, and system will generate a TU. But I'm skipping that, even though I've done the setup, but I'm skipping the TU part over here. So we are creating the ASN or inbound delivery based on the information which we will receive from the vendor. Now, if you have the integration done with Ariba or any EDI integration, then it can be created automatically. Otherwise, we will create it manually. So the inbound delivery is created. And either you can process it on RF, or in this case we will just process it on desktop, and then we can carry out the put away. So we have done the good receipt. Now by posting the good receipt, you can see that we didn't face any error in terms of consumption of the product. But if the batch is not mentioned in the component tab in purchase order, you will notice that either the queue is getting stuck, or while posting the consumption, the queue, when it goes back to S4, it will get stuck. So we will check the details for this inbound delivery on S4 side to check what are the documents created and material document. And then we will jump over to the configuration, which is done behind the scene. Now that the final product is received, let's take a look at the inbound delivery on S4 side to check the material document which is generated. So first thing is that it should have the status as C. Now checking the document flow. So we can see that the good receipt is posted. Now, if if there would be any byproduct involved in this process, then for that we have to do separate posting to bring the stock in. But I did not provide any byproduct information in the bill of material. So we can see that 101 is posted to receive the product, and there should be a posting for the consumption of component. So this was the component which we supplied to the vendor, and now using 543O, it's getting consumed from the subcontracting stock, which will conclude the end user part. Now to take a look at the setup which we require to run this process, first and foremost is that we need to ensure that the BP is created properly, and it is linked with the BP is created with the customer and the vendor role. make sure all the details are updated, especially the shipping condition in the customer master, so that the shipping point gets determined based on this value. And in the general data tab, just ensure that the customer and vendor number both are mapped over here. If the number range is which we have set up for the account group is marked for a different number for customer and for supplier versus the BP. Now once this is done, we'll jump over to the configuration. So over here you can see the setup that the delivery category LV is mapped for the plant and storage location with this delivery document type. Now once this setup is done, then make sure that there is another setup which we have to make sure that this is not directly linked or done, but it's important that we have completed this setup as part of your EWM integration with S4 side. So we have to mention the sales or the sales area detail at your plant, and then if you have different BPs created for your scenario for each storage location, then you can mention the different BP number. So in logistics execution or LE part, there are a couple of few basic things which needs to be done. One is the shipping point determination. So at times you will notice that when you're setting the process, system is not able to determine the shipping point. So it's very important. So you can see that this is the particular node which I spoke about earlier, that if you want to maintain the shipping point based on storage location, then you have to select, the appropriate setting. You could create a different delivery document type, and then instead of LB, if you one of the plant in your organization requires a different setup versus the other plant. So then if you are activating based on storage location, then you have to come to this particular node and maintain the shipping point determination based on your storage location. Otherwise, in general, then you have to, if you are not doing that, then otherwise you have to come here and maintain the setup over there. Now this is quite critical and important that you are maintaining. So shipping point is determined based on your shipping condition as one of the factor, loading group and delivering plant. Once that is done, the other thing which we have to ensure is that the delivery split indicator is activated. I've already activated the delivery split for the warehouse as well. If you have not done, you can also activate that. Now, in the material management module, there is another important setting, which is similar to what we saw earlier, but I'll just show now. So I've noticed that if this setup is missing, then we run into the issue during the delivery creation. So it's best to maintain this information as well. So if you go to this particular node, you have to maintain the sales area and the customer number. So I'm just showing as an example. So you have to maintain the sales area and the customer number for your plant. So if this is missed out, you will see that at the delivery creation, you will run into a issue. So even though it falls under stock transport order, so it's important that we carry out this step as well. Now for subcontracting PO, at times, you can have a different supplying plant. So you might be, carrying out, you might have created the, subcontracting PO in your plant, but the supplying plant would be different. So make sure that, this setup is also done. Now, once we have carried out the required detail from the S4 side, then we will jump onto the EWM side setup. So the most important part, I think, is to implement the BC set for subcontracting so that you get the standard item category for subcontracting process. So this is the BC set which you need to implement. Once you will click on that, I can probably click here. System will bring the item type which we saw earlier, ODTS. You can check the log also. Once it is implemented, then you can check the logs that what exactly has been updated. You can click here to see the details. Now, and if we, so you can see that system has, brought this over in the configuration. So now going back to the configuration, once you have the relevant item type, then go to the interface and ERP integration, delivery processing, map the document type LB with OUTB, and then map the item type between S4 and EWM. So once this setup is done, then you are good to proceed with the end user part, which we have already covered. So these are the main key points. Once you have done this setup in your system, then the process should work seamlessly.